Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey guys, so today's episode is really special and really close to my heart. It's something I'm passionate about. So listen, every year thousands of children fall victim to abuse, neglect, or abandonment. These children become victimized and may become trapped in the court and welfare maze. They can spend their whole childhood moving from one temporary home to another. So what we're talking about today is children who have suffered abuse by no fault of their own and end up not only being abused, but they end up being pulled from the only home and the only family they know and put into the foster care system. And so there's no way around it. We all know our system is broken. Doesn't matter what state you're in, our system is broken. And that's a bigger problem, right? They're underfunded, they're understaffed, and that's a problem that's going to take a little bit more to solve. But what we can do right now is be there for these kids in the system. So today I have with me Kristin Jackson, who is the executive director of the Child Network since 2011. She's been a family advocate. She's been a forensic interviewer. She's done all the different facets of this organization. And today she's going to talk to us about two programs in particular. One is the CAC, the Children's Advocacy Center, and the other is what I'm involved in, which is the CASA program. And CASA is a court-appointed special advocate. So we're going to go over both of these programs and exactly how you fit into this. Because of all the episodes, guys, this is one that I really want you to listen to the end and really feel it in your bones. You know what I mean? You know, I got the links in the show notes. So this is one of the episodes I really would love you to click through and learn more about these programs. Because there is nothing more important than helping these kids. Nothing. If you're looking for a way to give back to your community, because part of this spiritual journey in midlife is we have a little bit more time on our hands, and we're at the point that we really can and should start giving back in whatever way you feel called to do. And so as we go over this today, if you're called to help these children, please do so. Okay? Please do so. There is, like I said, nothing more important than these kids. So let's jump in. Let's hear all about how you can help. Hey, Kristin, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You guys, I'm really excited today to tell you guys all about these programs. This is really important to me. And I think by the end of this episode, it's going to be really important to you too. That's my hope, because before this program and meeting Kristin and the whole, I didn't even realize how important this stuff was. I think you guys are in that same boat with me. And because we're in midlife, a lot of us listening, we're starting to have a little bit more time on our hands, right? Our kids have grown and we're ready to invest in other things, fill our own cup and give back. That's part of this whole spiritual journey too, is just giving back to our community. And this is one of the best programs, and it's nationwide. It's not just in my community. It's all over. And the links are going to be in the show notes. So you guys will be able to find your local chapter of all this. So Kristin, I've already told them you're the head honcho over at our Child Network. And so Child Network is the name of my organization. And tell us what's umbrellaed under that.
Yes. So Child Network is home to two nationally accredited programs. So we have our CASA program, which is an acronym for Court-Appointed Special Advocates.
Yep.
And then our Children's Advocacy Center, which a lot of people know as the CAC.
Yes. So those are umbrellaed under Child Network in our area. But every area has CASA programs and CACs also.
Yes.
And also GALs. We'll go into all of these acronyms we keep spouting out. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the CAC program first. So tell us what this does for the children in our area. First of all, what ages come to you, to these organizations?
So for the Children's Advocacy Center, we serve children from about the time they're 3 until they're 18. So
Okay.
really when a children is able to participate in an interview, so they have the verbal skills to do so. So generally around 3.
Okay. And how do these kids come to you?
So when a report is made to law enforcement or to the DCFS hotline and they believe that a child is being abused, the child is brought to our center with a safe adult or a non-offending caretaker. And the child, they receive a forensic interview. So we have specially trained interviewers on staff who interview the children one at a time if it's a family of children, while the investigative team is observing the interview live. So the investigative team generally includes a detective from whichever jurisdiction the alleged abuse occurred in, DCFS investigator, and a prosecutor from the state attorney's office.
Okay. And then your actual like forensic interviewer is the one taking charge with the children though.
Correct.
Kind of running the show.
So yes, they interview the children one-on-one. They're alone in the interview room while the team is just observing the interview.
Okay. And so bottom line, like these are children who have been abused.
Yes.
Typically sexually abused.
Yes. Probably 90% of the cases we see are
So these are very
sexual abuse.
sensitive cases.
They are.
And so this is so important that everyone can gather at the same time because
then the child only has to tell their story one time.
yeah.
So they're not being re-traumatized by having to tell their story to all of the different players in the investigation.
Yeah, because that can be re-traumatizing each time they have to tell that story again.
Definitely.
And so to someone who specializes in talking with children, because it's probably different when you're talking with a 4-year-old than a 15-year-old, obviously. And they're recording it too. So this may prevent them from having to do it in court or not.
It doesn't. I think that's a common misconception, though. So they will have to testify in court.
Okay. But it prevents the maybe multiple other times before they even get to court that they might have to talk about it.
It is, yes. So if somebody misses it, they can watch the interview rather than having to talk to the child again. And then, unfortunately, these cases don't go through the court system sometimes a year or 2, maybe even 3. And so a lot changes with the child, over the course of the time between the interview and the trial.
Yeah, and what they remember, how they remember
they
it.
can play that interview during the trial. And so a child could be 3 when the abuse happens and then 6 by the time that the trial occurs.
Yeah, which is a very different child.
Right. And so then the jurors get to see that.
Okay. So the interviews, you do the interviews there. Are there any other services under that program?
Yes. So we also have an advocacy component to that. So our family advocate works with the family members of the child. So she connects those to community resources and referrals, just depending on the circumstances of the case.
Okay.
So that could be to mental health, medical. We work with both hospitals who have SANEs, which are sexual assault nurse examiners.
Okay.
And we connect the families to those nurses for specialized medical exams.
Okay.
Also, just different community resources that the family might be in need of.
Right. That they'll get lost in the system and may never get a hold of if you guys don't help.
We do have a prevention component at Child Network. I don't know. I haven't talked about that.
Okay. No, so this falls under like the CAC?
So it is funded by the CAC, yeah. But we have a new position at Child Network, and it's our prevention education specialist position.
Oh.
So it's really cool. So she goes out into the community and provides prevention education to children, but also to adults, which is something that really hasn't happened, right? And so she has a curriculum. It's called Darkness to Light. And she provides, it's about a 2.5-hour program to adults on all things. And this is specific to child sexual abuse.
Okay.
What to look out for, how to prevent it, red flags, warning signs. Let's just do better as parents because you know more, you're going to do better, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's even great. So that reminds me that I feel like another thing we can do to help the kids, just really simple, is keep our eyes out.
Yeah.
Keep our eyes open because there are certain professions that are required to report things like teachers, like nurses. There are professions, but that doesn't mean that if you think you're seeing abuse in a child, whether they're a family, a friend, somewhere, that you can't reach out.
Yeah. If you see something, say something.
Absolutely. And so the phone number is listed down under the show notes too. But you can anonymously, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Report if you think something's happening.
You can do it to the DCFS hotline. It's easy to remember, 1-800-25-ABUSE, and you can report anonymously.
Yep. If you think something's going on with a child in your life somewhere.
Yeah. And it's better to err on the side of caution. If
Yes.
you're wrong, that's okay.
If you're wrong, you're wrong. Like they're going to just check it out and nope, it's fine. But listen, if you're right, you might be the only person that this child has to get them going in the right direction.
You might save a child's life.
Literally save a child's life. That's the CAC program. Okay. Then under your umbrella also is the CASA program.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what that is, what that stands for, and what those volunteers do.
Sure. So again, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. And this is a volunteer-driven program, right? So we recruit and train really everyday community citizens to advocate for the best interest of children who have been placed into foster care as a result of abuse or neglect.
Okay. And so this is my favorite because this is what I'm in. So this is the one that's my favorite. And, and again, you guys, this is everywhere. I was even listening to a podcast the other day, and it was Dax Shepard. He does like the Armchair Expert podcast. And you know, Dax, he's an actor. Anyway, he was talking about his mom is a CASA volunteer. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's just cool to hear, right? On like national level that, you know, stuff's going on. So this is for everybody. And what kind of like qualifications right up front would someone need to even do this?
So the only qualifications are that you're at least 21 years old, have a high school diploma or the equivalent, and can pass various background checks and are able to complete a 30-hour pre-service training.
Yeah, because this program started with a judge. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. In fact, I think I just saw recently he had passed away or something.
He did.
Yeah. Anyway, so the judge came up with this because they saw this gap in the system, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's kind of what it does. That's my opinion. It kind of fills in a gap because listen, I've been doing this so I see the caseworkers are overloaded, just like everything in our system. You guys, like the government's running these things. So the caseworkers overloaded, social workers, service providers, everyone is just overloaded. And if you guys saw like the stack of paperwork these caseworkers even just have to do, it's crazy. I feel like they're kind of in the category of our teachers. We want them to do the very best for our children, but we kind of don't want to pay them enough. Anyway, I won't get on that tangent for too long, but there's a shortage is what I'm saying. And so they're doing their very best. They are to keep up with each kid's case and what's going on. But what's nice is when they have a CASA in there, we can kind of help with that gap.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah. And so that to me is kind of the biggest role because for me, and I tell this to all the families I work with, like I'm not on anyone's team or side, right? So we're not on the biological parents' family side. I'm not on the foster parent side either. I always say I'm only team whatever child. Let's say her name's Sally. I don't even have any Sallys, but I'm just only on Sally's side. We're only on the child side, you guys, to make sure they're getting what they need from everybody involved, right? And that they're being heard. And that's different for each age, I think, what that entails. But basically, would you say that that's about right, Kristin?
That's exactly right.
Like, that's how I see my job anyway. So correct me if I'm wrong when I say anything, because yeah, this is just my opinion of what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about the different things that CASA actually like does. Because I think some people don't even understand what the whole volunteerism will entail.
Sure.
Okay. There's like 5 categories, you guys, of what we do. And so the first part is learn. We go out and we learn everything going on. So this is sometimes the part that takes a little bit more time at the very beginning. So here's the deal. You get assigned a case, and that's assigned by like the supervisor at CASA, and the judge really kind of also sometimes will say, I really wish this case had a CASA.
Yes.
Okay. So we are court appointed. So we do have access to, some other things. It's all confidential. So obviously nothing I'm sharing or Kristin's sharing are any real cases going on. Okay. I just want to clarify that I would never speak of any of the open cases going on. So when you go to learn, so here's what happens. You got to figure out, you go meet the child. if they're in foster care, you're meeting their foster family. And then you're going to go meet their biological family also. And you're really you're not sitting there grilling them. We're not the police. We're not you're right. We're just kind of getting an idea of what's going on, right? What's each side's story? What's going on? We hear from the child. And this is especially important with babies because it's a different situation. Because if you go and you're sitting down with a 12-year-old, you're going to have a very different conversation than with a baby because obviously the babies can't really tell you what happened or what's going on. So we have to get that also from family members and just kind of keep an eye on things, right? So what type of things are we looking for when we're first meeting?
Right. So you're looking first and foremost to make sure that the foster home is a safe environment for the child,
Yes.
regardless of their age, right?
Right.
And the older kids can communicate that. Babies, you'll really have to really just observe what's going on in the home.
Yeah, babies, toddlers, because obviously you want to make sure that it's a safe environment, age appropriate. If you've got a toddler running around, right, that it's a clean environment to a point. We all have different standards of clean, you guys. And so we always have to keep in mind what our house looks like might not be what someone else's does, and that's okay.
Absolutely. It's just so important to remain open-minded when you go in.
Yeah, that's the main thing. You have to go in and just know like, all right, well, this isn't what my living room looks like, but it's great. It's clean. This is a loving environment. You know what I mean? Do they have their own bedroom? Do they have their own bed? Are they sharing a bedroom? Who's it with? Just those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Right? Like what adults are living in the home and is there food? I mean, just kind of some basic things.
Right.
And I never would go in and start ripping people's cabinets open looking for food. This is not what it is, you guys. You're just chilling on the couch, getting a vibe, really, of what's going on. Because in the foster system, not every foster home is doing it for the right reasons. I'll just say it. And so we need to make sure that that child is safe.
Right.
And by having a CASA volunteer, that's that extra set of eyes on it.
That's exactly right.
No kid is getting lost in the system when they've got a CASA worker. Let me just tell you that.
Right. The CASA is really that one consistent adult in the child's life while they're in care.
Yes, because that's another thing, the consistency, because a child may be moved several times during their case.
That's very common.
It's very common. It's not common for them to be placed in a foster home or with a different relative and they just stay there until they go back home. That's rare. And so you're that person that's going to help them transition to the next home they have to live in and be their constant person that they start to realize you're there for them. No matter what, their environment might change, the people around them might change, but you're not changing. You're going to be there with them. And so the other part is just visits with the child, just engaging with them and getting to know them. And I've heard volunteers talk about they'll go to their baseball games if they're in baseball. They'll attend, a concert at their school if they're singing in a concert, whatever it is.
Right.
And also because we're court appointed, if they're having troubles at school and maybe the foster parents just have their hands full and they can't really help them out enough, we can actually go and speak with their teacher.
Absolutely.
Speak with their principal. See how they're doing in school. Help them out. Are they getting the services they need? Right?
Which is so crucial.
So crucial because you could have a dyslexic child that no one's even realized, right? And they're having trouble in school and they're frustrated. And there's already emotional issues because look what they're going through. And now you're expecting even more out of them at school.
Yeah. And that can happen too when children are moved from foster home to foster home and to different school districts. So our volunteers, they have that information that they can share with the new foster parents, the new school district, just to make sure that the children's educational needs are being met.
They're still getting their speech therapy.
Right.
I want to make sure that adjustments are being made. Yeah. So that's part of that consistency. And the child will begin to trust you because they know you're with them. You didn't fall off when they moved to a new foster home. You're right there. And you're advocating for them. You're saying, what do you need? How's it going? Right? Even just to have someone say, how's it going? Or sit down and play your video game with you.
It can be that simple.
It's just that simple, you guys. You could just go play a board game. You could just play their video game or watch their favorite show or just ask them like, how are you doing? And that sounds so simple. And you're thinking, well, people are no, they're not doing that. They're just not doing that.
Those little things can make such a huge impact.
It's like huge in their life. Okay. Because the ages for the CASA program go all the way from newborn all the way up to what age?
21.
To 21. So it's a bit past what you might think. Because another thing is we work along what their permanency goal is. So you guys will hear this term if you're in there. And this is something the caseworkers and DCFS decide what their permanency goal is. And the permanency goal is always from the beginning, tell me if I'm wrong, return to home.
Yes.
Because our goal is always to get the kids back with their biological family.
That's
back
true.
Back with mom, back with dad and aunt, back with their biological, because who's going to love them more?
Right. At the end of the day, that's where the kids want to be. That's where they're going to thrive. And it's just our job to help the parents get to the spot, complete their service plan so that they can be reunited with their children.
Absolutely. And then there are some cases where the kids are maybe older and maybe they don't want to return to home, or that's not feasible for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So their goal might be what?
It could be independence.
Yeah.
That's not unusual. So children that are older teenagers, 16, 17, 18, and then beyond, a lot of times it's independence where DCFS, the caseworkers, and especially the CASA will really help the child transition into adulthood, whether that's helping them get into college, helping them with, FAFSA, college applications, those sort of things, or really just helping them find a job, just depending on what they're wanting to do with their future.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might be out there saying, I don't really get along with little kids. That's okay. Do you know how many kids are in this system that are teenagers and that really just need almost a mentor, someone to say, hey, that they can just run their ideas by and help make a life plan.
Yeah. Teenagers, they need a CASA sometimes more than anyone. A lot of times teenagers have a hard time finding placement. So a lot of times they are placed in residential facilities because foster parents, they prefer a lot of times newborns, younger children. Right. And so teenagers are really hard to place.
Yeah, because listen, I had teenagers and they were my own children. And sometimes I kind of wanted to place them in a group home. Am I right?
Right.
Teenagers are freaking hard.
They are really hard.
And so imagine though, not even having loving parents, being on your own. Think of that child who's kind of rebelling a little and now they have no mentorship at all. So I think it's really important to try and so maybe you're out there and you could just mentor a teenager, you know what I mean? And help them get started in life.
Right.
Yeah. And that's so rewarding just doing that.
Yeah.
And there, just to clarify guys, no one's moving into your home. You're not fostering.
Correct.
Okay. But this is a way that you can still be a really big part of these kids' lives. And really help them along, in any age group. Because I love every age kids. I'm a kid person. I would rather sit at the kid table most of the time at a wedding or anywhere. And that goes from every age. I can chill with a toddler and have fun. I can also hang at with the teenager table and just love every minute of it. But I know that a lot of times you might have a preference.
Sure. And as a program, we really do. We try to work with each volunteer and match you with the age of child that you would prefer.
Yeah. They're not just going to tell you, here's this 6-month-old, this who you're in charge of, or here's a teenager if you're not comfortable with teenagers.
Right.
So you definitely have a say in which case you end up taking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes you guys know there's a priority list.
There is.
There's always a priority list of this needs someone.
Yes. And a lot of time the judge dictates that.
Yeah. And says, I would like a CASA on this case. Yeah, because I've had cases where that was the case, where it was the judge was like, we could really use another set of eyes on this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're visiting them. We're getting to know the families, and I get to know both sides. And it is a little tricky because you care for everybody, or I do, right? And so it is really important that you always remember you're on the child's team and nobody else's. What's best for the child, not what you think would be the best environment for them to be raised in. What's best for the child? And so you're doing all of this, and then this all culminates into a report. Tell us about this report.
Right. So our CASA volunteers, they write a report every 6 months that they submit to the judge for what's called a permanency review hearing. And in the report, you're including everything that you've observed the previous 6 months, any concerns that you've observed or that you have, and any recommendations that you have.
Yes. And don't be scared by this, you guys, because the report, you're going to learn how to do this during your training, and your supervisor is going to go over it long before the judge sees it, right? It's going to be, perfected before it gets handed to the judge.
It's less scary than it sounds.
It is not that scary, you guys. It's not. But the judge does take that seriously, though.
They do.
Because they know, tell us from the judge's point of view, kind of what they're expecting from a CASA.
Right. Well, they understand that the CASA has a lot more time to commit to the case than the caseworkers who also submit court reports, right? And so they really do take into consideration the concerns and recommendations of CASA volunteers because they know that you're spending a lot more time than anybody else in the courtroom with these children so that you know things that no one else knows.
Yes. And I know from being in court, the judge reads them completely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And they will even ask you before the court session closes, like, CASA, is there anything else?
Right.
Yeah.
So ideally, the CASA should have an opportunity to speak up at each permanency review hearing.
Yes. And if there's anything, like our recommendations are already in there, you know, for what we feel is in the best interest of this child. So we kind of list our concerns. And then we also list what we think is in the best interest. For instance, it might say it's in the best interest of the child to stay in their current foster home or what, you know, whatever, or not. You know, it can be any, whatever, which honestly, if like for me, if I thought a child should not be in the foster home they're in, I'm not waiting for a permanency review.
Right. And there are status hearings too, when there's something big going on in a case.
Yeah.
Things like that can happen too.
And this really brings us to like part of it is collaborating, our collaboration in this whole thing, because we work closely with that caseworker and the service providers they're getting sometimes. Like I said, we could go to the school and see what's going on at school. And also I know I work closely with the caseworker. So if, for instance, a child does need moved to a different home, which I have had happen, we can coordinate together. We can work really hard to keep them in that home if we think that's going to be in the best interest of the child. But if for whatever reason that doesn't work out, and there's lots of reasons that could be, so we work closely with them to make sure that transition is smooth as it can be, right? Moving from one foster home to another.
Right.
And then then the process starts over. We make sure that we keep an eye on that foster home.
Exactly.
Guys, we're the eyes and ears of these kids is what we are.
You are.
We are. We really are. And this is exactly what I do.
And you can be a huge asset to the caseworker because these caseworkers are so overworked. They are. They just are. They have so many. Unfortunately, there's so many cases and so many new ones every day because there is a rise in babies that are born substance exposed. And so typically, if a child is born substance exposed, for a certain amount of time, they're not going to go home, obviously, with their mom. That's right.
Hopefully there's a family member, but that's still a foster situation and they're still in the system.
So there is relative foster placement.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's still foster placement.
It's still foster placement because ultimately who is then in control of that child is DCFS.
Yes.
So ultimately they're making the decisions for these children. And then they're the ones who call in the caseworker, right?
Yes.
And then maybe a CASA will be assigned. Okay. So that's how they're in this whole system. Okay. I mean, every age group, obviously. What would you say of all the cases that you've seen? What's a couple of the top reasons that the kids end up in the system?
I think substance abuse may be number one right now.
Is substance abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then probably just abuse.
Abuse, domestic violence in the house.
Domestic violence. Yep.
That's big.
That's big. Those are probably a couple of the biggest. Oh, so this just brings us to we can't even go over all the things we got to do to fix these things, guys. But let's just stay where we're at. These kids are now in the system. And so they've been assigned a caseworker and maybe a CASA. So we're collaborating with everybody to make sure that what we're doing is exactly what needs to be done for the child, right? That's the main purpose of a CASA.
Exactly.
Yes. And then these reports are a big part of it to the court because the court makes the decisions too. Some big decisions for these kids.
They do.
Yeah. And they decide what parents have to do to get their children back.
Yes. So there's a service plan that really lays out all of the services that the parents have to complete in order for them to get their kids back.
Yes. So part of what the CASA does too is we don't just support the foster family and the child. We try and support the biological family.
Yeah, because that's a huge part in helping them, complete their services so that they can get their children back. So that goal can remain return home.
Yes, because you really want to support, because sometimes like a biological mom just needs a little bit more support.
A lot of times they don't have any support.
They have no support. And so someone to come along and say, well, I can't go get that done. I don't have a car. I don't have whatever. So it might be as simple as like our organization helping them get a bus pass, right? Also in the, for the children, like the weather's changing right now. There are a lot of children who don't have the coat, the boots, the mittens in the system for the colder weather that's coming.
That's
right?
true.
It's just true. So it's little things like that we're there for. We can say, okay, here's resources. Let's get you over here. You know what I mean? Like this child needs a winter coat and boots and all of that. Okay, let's help them get to the resources so they have those things. Because caseworkers don't have time to do this, you guys.
They really don't.
They really don't have time. They are worried that the children have coats for winter. They're worried, but that just is not at the top of their list. It's just not.
Right. And if the CASA can make that connection and help the caseworker, that's huge to them.
Yeah. I mean, I keep my caseworkers in the loop on everything. And I can tell you how many times they thanked me.
Right.
Like, thank you so much for telling me that. I didn't even know that was going on. Or, or whatever. And then they're on it. So It's not up to us to go in and intervene, guys. So don't be scared that like, now you got to bust into that house. You know what I mean? And say, we're taking this kid.
Right.
No, we're just bringing attention to things we think need done. And then there are professionals, guys, to kind of make that transition. And we assist them if they'd like, right?
Yeah.
I've done that before. I've helped a child transition to a new home. And so it's just important that we collaborate with everybody with a really good working relationship. And I mean, we all hear people say that these kids get lost in the system. That's real, you guys.
Yeah, there are cracks in the system.
There
cracks.
Definitely are. It's a broken system. Okay. There's no way around it. And everyone may have the best intention in the system. There's just not enough. Or there are cracks. Guys, there's going to be a caseworker out there that's going to let a kid fall through a crack. It's just going to happen. And so maybe the CASA has to really, if that caseworker is not working well, hey, we got to like have a conversation.
Sometimes you do have to have those hard conversations.
With a service provider or something. Like, look, we've been on the waiting list 6 months. Like this kid really, what can we do? Yeah.
And sometimes your court report isn't going to reflect the caseworker's report that they submit to the judge, right? And so you have to be okay with that. And you have to be able to stand up and justify your reasons. But it's okay if you're not always agreeing with everyone else in the courtroom.
Yes. Because I've had to do that too. I've had to stand up for my kids and say, okay, well, here's what I'm seeing, right? Like, here's what I'm seeing. By no fault, and you never place blame on anyone else.
Sure.
By no fault of anyone, but here's what's happening with this child. And here's what needs to happen with this child, in my opinion. And you use those beautiful, it's in this child's best interest words, and you let the judge know. Okay, listen, I have these stats. Tell me if these sound right to you.
Okay.
I found, so this is when a child has a CASA, these are statistics of how their chances go up kind of in life. Okay, 83% receive the appropriate services when they might not have.
That's right.
Okay, 80% have a hugely increased psychological well-being. They're more emotionally and mentally stable is what we're saying. Psychologically, they do much better in life. And then 92% just overall, when they've done all the studies, you guys, if you had a CASA worker, these child have a 92% rate of just overall doing better in life.
They do.
I mean, that's big, you guys, 92%.
And they're less than half as likely to re-enter the foster care system at any time if they've had a CASA volunteer.
Yeah, they end up, once they come out of the system, they stay out.
They stay out. And because all of the services have been completed and been completed well, and the CASA has spent a lot of time with the biological parents a lot of the times. So they've really set them up for success to make sure that their children don't end up back in care. They have more resources than they've ever had before.
Right. So they're totally ready for whatever's next. So how high is the need for CASA workers in our area nationwide? So in our area, would you say there are a lot of kids waiting?
Only about 50% of the kids that our CASA program is currently serving have a CASA volunteer.
Okay. And then I read online nationwide, there's like 400,000 kids.
Yes.
Waiting for a CASA worker. So these are kids who, like the judge has decided, DCFS could really use some extra help, could use a CASA work on the case, and they're just waiting.
Yeah, there's a huge need.
Yes, they're just waiting. They're waiting for you. If you're listening, they're waiting for you. So you've got to sign up because it's just a huge problem. Because I think I also saw only about 35% of the kids nationwide get a CASA that need a CASA
sounds about
worker.
right.
Yeah, which this is a really great program. So we got to get more people involved.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I know that volunteerism nationally is down, but this is such an important program and it's a really rewarding volunteer opportunity.
Yeah, it really is. She's the executive director. She sees all of this. I'm just a little volunteer over here telling you, but it is important. And I know that so much now just from being in it and seeing it, seeing the kids, you know what I mean? And so if they can't volunteer, there are still ways to support these kids in this program, correct?
There are.
Okay. What other things could you guys use support with?
So one thing we have is called our caring closet. So like you talked about a little bit ago, sometimes they need coats, boots, just basic need items. And so we have a room in our office that has those things. And they are all brand new items that are donated by the community.
Yeah.
So we're always in need of things like diapers, wipes, bedding, pillows, toiletries, just those basic need items.
And even just gift cards.
Or gift cards.
Because
absolutely.
like gas cards, sometimes bio parents need gas cards to get to their appointments and to bring kids around. Or the volunteers.
Correct.
Need gas money to volunteer. Because, you know, you're not expected to like fund everything as a CASA volunteer.
Right.
Right. So, and gift cards, I know one time there was a gift card. So I had a certain kid who needed some winter stuff and some clothes. I mean, they didn't have many clothes for the upcoming colder season at the time. And so sometimes you can give a volunteer a gift card. They can take it to a resale shop and get some clothes.
Yes.
Just little things like that, you guys. So you don't necessarily have to like, well, what clothes would I buy to donate? You could just donate a gift card.
Yeah. And a lot of times that's easier.
And that's easier because then that CASA can go get the clothes in the right size, kind of in the right style. You know, kids, they don't.
Right. And the CASAs know what their kids are going to like.
They know their kid.
Yeah.
Right. They know if their 10-year-old little girl wants a pink sparkly coat or a plain black coat. Right. Like, because that's hard because we donate these coats to these kids. And they don't want to get made fun of at school.
Right. They're already going through a hard time. So we want to make sure they have what they want and what's going to make them feel really good.
That's important. Yeah. And that's all part of that bonding with your kid. You get to know them. You know what, if they're sporty, you know, if they're girly, you know, those little things they need. Even at Christmas, we have gifts. Like people donate gifts at Christmas time. We make sure all of the CASA kids all the kids in the program have gifts for Christmas under the tree.
Yeah. We work with a couple of different local businesses who do carrying trees. So every kid in our program gets Christmas gifts from us, which is, it sounds little, but it's really so big to them.
It's not, because I walked into a home and it was a week before Christmas and there was not one gift under that tree.
Yeah.
Not for the foster child, not for any of the kids. So I'm just saying you have to get out of the box of what's happening in your life, you guys, because that is not what's happening in everyone's lives out there. It's just not. It's just, it's heartbreaking sometimes. And so this CASA job is going to pull at your heartstrings. Just know that going into it, but we can do this. We can do this. And so, there's just all those little other things that you guys can do. So they can donate, right? Do you ever need volunteers that aren't interacting with the kids doing other things? Not really?
Because we are a nonprofit, we do have to fundraise. And so we have an annual fundraiser. We also do some other small fundraisers where we do utilize and ask for volunteers because we're a really small agency and the legwork of fundraising is pretty huge.
It's a lot, yeah. So you could even just be, if you love planning little events and doing stuff, you could help with that kind of thing.
Definitely.
So tell me more about this funding though. So how are these programs funded?
Okay, so our CASA program is funded through federal, state, and local grants and a lot of fundraising.
And so here's what I'm going to say is the next important thing. Guys, it's an election time. And so I know that we're all worried about who the freaking president's going to be. Listen, more important than that are our local legislators, judges, all of that. It's really important to research them locally wherever you're at, you guys, because they're the ones making the decision on funding, right? And the judges are making the decisions in these child's lives. And all of the legislators and judges, they're all there because you and I elected them there. And so it's important to just research that stuff. And I'm not saying any of them aren't good. We have great legislators, great judges, everything. But in your area, you may not.
Really, every state funds CASA programs a little bit differently. We're funded by the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services and Advocacy and Illinois Attorney General.
Okay. So each state has how they determine what funding these programs get.
Yes.
The CASA program, the CAC, any of those. So look up in your area, guys, different programs. And listen, the legislators are the ones deciding where our funding goes. We're paying our taxes. We all know we're paying our taxes. And then we elect all these people to spend it appropriately. I think we all know that's not happening all the time. So maybe your part of helping these programs out is just making sure the right people get elected that support these programs and that put these children first.
Right. And CASA programs and children's advocacy centers are really just underfunded in almost every state.
Yes. So maybe you just need to be that advocate that makes a couple phone calls or sends a couple letters to your local legislator. That's why it's so important in these elections. The local, to me, is more important than the national.
Yes.
Right? I get it. We're all worried about who the president's going to be. But we need to worry about who is in our own community in charge.
We do.
Of the funds.
The more that they hear about CASA, the Children's Advocacy Center, the more they're going to be proactive when bills and legislation come up regarding those programs.
Exactly. Yeah. And just some of these, you can log onto the websites, and the ones in your area are probably going to, you know what I mean, have some of those things listed. So I'm just thinking it's really important, especially this season right now, as I thought about it. And I'm like, listen, we need to make sure the right people are budgeting correctly.
Yeah.
Because our children are not getting enough of our tax money.
They're definitely not.
End of story. I don't care if it's in the school system, the DCFS system, I know I have kids on waiting lists to get services because we don't even have enough federal funding for that stuff.
It's really sad.
There's not enough even speech therapists, occupational therapists, things that these kids need. Especially these kids that were born substance exposed. They need extra help, you guys, and we're letting them down. And part of this is our funding. We got to fund it more.
A big part of it is funding.
That's a big part of it, right? So that's a way you can be an advocate too. Even if you can't fully train and be a CASA worker, you can totally still join the bandwagon and make sure that they're getting the funding they need.
Yes, spread the word.
Spread the word, because I hadn't heard of CASA for forever. And then finally, when it came to it, I was like, this sounds like an amazing program. Like, this sounds exactly like what I'd want to do. And as a side note, if you're out there, because a lot of people listening, we're midlifers, we're on these spiritual journeys, we're growing, we're figuring out what's next. We're trying to finish strong in the soul life. And so if you have any kind of stuff from your own child, this is healing is what I'm trying to say.
It can be incredibly healing.
Helping other children the way maybe you wished you would have been helped as a child is so healing. I mean, it just is. And I can tell you from personal experience, just seeing these children and knowing that you've helped them, I mean, it's everything. It just fills your cup to the top. So if you're looking for something that is really going to make an impact in your community, this is what you got to do. It is. And I volunteer with animals. You know, I love animals, guys out there. I do that too. But there's something about that little child's eyes looking up at you. You got me, right?
Mm-hmm. It's so rewarding.
You got me. And you're looking back like, I got you. Okay. Because I'll be a bulldog if I have to be for these kids. Okay. That's just the bottom line. In a nice way, in a great way, because I love my bio families and I love my foster families. They're all doing the best they can at everything. But listen, I'm team Sally, or whatever I named her. That's what team I'm on, right? And sometimes there might be a little hard conversation somewhere, guys. And that's okay.
But it's worth it.
It's worth it because you're standing up for that child. And so it's healing, I guess is what I'm trying to say, for you and the child. You're helping them. You're helping you. You're helping bio mom. You're helping foster mom, whatever it is. Because there are times when it gets to the point where our permanency changes from return to home.
And that can be really tough.
And then that's that moment, depending on the age of the child, when it's decided you're not going to be able to go back and live with mom or dad or whoever for whatever reason. That's hard for them to understand from the side that we see it. And so sometimes that changes to adoption. Sometimes that changes to independence, right? What else would that change to?
It can be guardianship. It could be just aging out of the system.
Yep. And so just being there to be a part of that with them, because their permanency is changing, their plan is changing, but you're not changing.
Right.
You're staying there with them all the way to the end, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like I plan on attending these children's weddings, and they're not anywhere near old enough to get married. But I feel like, how could I ever not care that they're going to be okay?
Right. And a lot of our CASA volunteers, they stay connected to the children that they're serving well into adulthood. And it's really cool for them to see them succeed.
Yes. Yeah. Because I've talked to volunteers whose kids are older, aged out of the system, and they still go meet up with them and have lunch.
Yeah.
To see how they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, long after. And that's so important. Because we all know, if you don't have that one person in your life that you think really cares about you, it's hard. It's hard for you to care about yourself. And so this is big.
Yeah.
I know. So we need more volunteers. The bottom line is, we're going to need you guys, everyone listening. Kristin and I are going to really need you to sign up now. No.
Yes.
And do some training. And so tell them a little bit about the training.
Okay.
What's that entail?
Yes. So the training, it's 30 hours. And we have a couple different versions of the training. So we have a full in-person 30-hour training. We have one hybrid training. So it's 15 hours online, 15 hours in person. And then we also have, it's called guided learning. So it's more of an independent study. And that really works for adults who have a social work background or a background.
A little bit of background.
Yeah, a little bit of background.
So they can transition to this easier.
So we really try to accommodate everybody's lifestyle, everybody's working situations, so that if you want to be a volunteer, we'll make sure you get trained.
Yeah. And what kind of things do you train on then?
Oh gosh. So really child development, courtroom etiquette, courtroom procedure, just a brief overview of the child welfare system, all of the types of abuse, dynamics of abuse. What else, Jen, that I'm missing?
Yeah, just kind of getting you familiar with the whole system you're about to be a part of.
Right.
And I know we spent quite a bit of time when I trained, and mine was all on Zoom because this was, when we were all just Zooming. And we weren't going many places. Okay. But I remember just learning a lot about even just the system, because the system's complicated. I'm still learning. I mean, every time I'm in court, learn something new.
And then there's continuing education training too.
Yes.
So our volunteers are required to complete 12 hours of continuing ed each year. And our program offers plenty of different opportunities to make sure that you can achieve that.
Yeah, I've logged on to just 1 hour lunchtime Zoom trainings on different things, or attended them. There's even books you can read that count towards that.
Right.
All kinds of stuff.
We make it easy. Movies you can watch, books you can read. It's really easy to get those 12 hours.
Yeah. And sometimes our local chapter here will have once a month where we get together for an hour and we have a speaker or something going on, and that counts.
Yes.
Okay. So then one a month, there's your 12, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't it's going to take up a bunch of extra time. Yes, you have to invest some time in the training, because obviously we're not just throwing anybody out there.
Right.
You wouldn't want that either. No, you got to, learn all the things.
Yeah. And then after the training is complete, you are sworn in by the juvenile court judge.
By the judge.
Yeah.
Because this whole thing, it's called CASA, court appointed.
Right.
Special advocate. So the judge appoints you to that child, swears you in. And then that's when you talk with your supervisor about which case would be a good fit for you. And then you get assigned a case. And then off you go.
That's it.
And then you're out, and then you're going to go meet this wonderful child and their families and everything. And before you go the situation.
Right. We're never going to just throw you into an unsafe or uncertain situation.
No, because you're going to actually be clued in on the case, what happened, all the confidential information. So kind of what happened. So when you go in there, you're not, asking them to tell you the whole story.
Right.
I mean, you're going to, kind of just chat with them and see where they're at with everything, and kind of see who you think needs the services. Is it bio mom? Is it the child? Is it who needs like services? And then sometimes there are sibling groups. So you might not have one. Sometimes are you assigned to maybe like 3 siblings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it can be. And really, again, it's the preference of the volunteer. But there are families. And so there can be a sibling group of 3, 4, 5.
That are in the same home or not.
Right. And they can be placed into different foster homes. And that makes it challenging for our volunteers. And sometimes we pair volunteers together in cases like that.
Yeah, to work so that they keep track of the whole thing.
Sure.
But it's important to have an advocate for that too, because maybe part of your advocating is making sure the siblings stay connected.
Right.
And have family meetings or, they get to hang out every once in a while. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So just making sure everybody that's good for the child.
Yeah. At the end of the day, what is best for the child?
Yeah. Is there any particular story or case, past, present, whatever, that you think is a really good example of how a CASA can truly like affect a child in a positive way? Do you have any story that pops out in your head that you're like, this tells you right here why this program is important?
And this was a case that was in the system for years. And this did involve a youth that had an independence goal in the end, but had a CASA that I want to say the CASA was with this case for 8 or 9 years. So that's real commitment, right? That is.
Yep.
And she helped him through school. He had struggled in school. She secured tutoring for him. He ended up doing so well in high school. He got a full ride scholarship to college and is just really successful.
And if he had not had that volunteer helping him secure tutoring and just supporting him through it all.
Helping him because he was such a smart kid, but he was depressed. There was a lot going on in his life. So school was not his priority, but such a bright child. And with the help of the volunteer, getting him tutoring and really getting him back on the right track. I mean, he's going to be such an successful adult.
Because you know what?
Yeah.
If he didn't have someone paying attention, no one may have noticed his potential.
Right.
No one may have said, hey, all he needs is a little help. This kid's smart.
Really smart.
Really smart. So that's the important part of this whole thing. We're with the children long enough and with them enough that we know their potential. Right. Better than anybody, even sometimes better than foster parents. I'll just be honest.
Right.
Because sometimes they're busy. They're overwhelmed, right? With their own kids and their foster kid. And they just don't see it sometimes. So we can jump in there. And like you said, that he or she's permanency was independence,
right.
And so, boy, then you really need support. You need someone saying, no, you got this.
Right.
Like,
and encouraged him to go to college because he didn't know what he wanted to do. He didn't have a ton of guidance. And so she presented him with lots of different university options, ended up going on tours with him and the foster parents. Right. Just, really that encouragement helped his trajectory in life.
Yeah. And even just supporting them if they're a sporty kid.
Yeah.
Making sure they get their rides to practice, that they don't have to quit their sport.
Right.
That, you know what I mean? Whatever they love in their life, you try and make sure that stays a part of their life as much as you can.
Definitely.
I also know some cases where we find out long after the fact, right? There's some red flags, guys. Sometimes there's some red flags, whether that's with a bio parent or a foster parent, and found out later after the fact that actually there was someone involved that wanted to sell that child. I'm not kidding you guys. And obviously that didn't happen because there were enough people involved. And we don't want to think, listen, you're thinking that doesn't happen in your community. It happens in your community because these babies and these little ones are at risk. And I'm sorry, but this was a case where if someone had gotten to have full custody of this child, they may have been sold over the border. And so this is big, you guys. I mean, this is big. We have to keep an eye on these kids. It's
a sad reality.
And the judge doesn't know about these things. And the caseworkers sometimes don't know about these things either. But listen, we're in a spot where we hear the things. We know the things. They trust us.
You're going to get information no one else will.
Yes, because you form this bond with everyone, really. And when your hairs go up on the back of your head that something's wrong, you go with it and you figure things out. So I'm just saying, in big ways and little ways. These kids need us to keep an eye on them. And this is one of those programs right here where you can be a part of it. You can do it if you're home thinking, no, oh my God, like we can't let this happen to our kids, not in my area. Then you need to get out there and help because we can do this. And like I said, if you're a midlifer like me, we're starting to have a little bit more time, right? Some of our kids are now flying out of the nest, right? We got an empty nest. And now this might be something you have time to put on your plate if you're thinking of something.
Yeah. And the time commitment isn't huge. It's really what you make it, right? Yes. And it's very flexible. You do the visits, all the volunteering on your own schedule. We're not dictating that as a program.
No, like I work directly with my foster parents or my bio parents to set up meetings with them at my convenience and theirs. But like, yeah. So if it's after work, if you're a person that's a morning, you need to do your visits in the morning, like you just make it happen. Right. Yeah. Nobody's like, they're there to support you, but they're not there to micromanage everything you're doing. Right.
Correct.
That's the point of the case. And so maybe you'll have to put a tiny bit more time in when you first get your case, just to see what's going on. But then you just really what's required once a month. You want to see your child at least once a month.
Yes, at least once a month. And really just focus on getting to know everybody in that child's life, right? You're going to have the most success if if you get to know the foster parent, if you get to know the biological parents, if you form a good relationship with a caseworker.
Yes. Then, you're going to be in the loop and you're going to know what's going on at every moment. And, like sometimes, like for me, when a child would move from one foster home to another, well, then I knew I would be kicking up my visits for a little bit to that new foster home, right?
Yeah.
Because I really want to make sure everything's going well there. Now, if they've been in their foster home a long time and things are going great, maybe, you don't have to go as often because they're getting good care. Yeah. And you're just checking in with them. Time-wise, this isn't an overly huge time commitment. Because like I said, you're not committing to fostering, which we need a lot of those too, guys.
We do.
Listen, we're at a loss for foster families too. So if you feel like you're being pulled towards that direction, you should go for it. And I'm going to put links to all kinds of resources underneath this episode for whatever you feel called to do. So if you want to take on being a foster parent, you're really needed. You are needed. And if that's something you can't do that kind of a commitment to, maybe you can just be a CASA volunteer and just keep an eye on everything and bond with that child and help them along their journey.
That's right. Yeah. We need all the CASA volunteers we can get in this county. We have so many kids in need.
Yeah. And then, so there's also a GAL in a lot of communities. So sometimes people get confused between the GAL and the CASA, right? Because the programs kind of go together.
They do. Yes. So in our county, we are a CASA program. Some counties are GAL programs, and GAL stands for Guardian Ad Litem.
Yes. So we do have one in our area. She's a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay.
So she's a guardian ad litem. So she's essentially the attorney for the child.
Yes. So when we're in the courtroom, the GAL is the attorney only representing the child.
Yes.
Right. Because bio mom might have a lawyer, has a lawyer. Bio dad has a lawyer.
Yes.
Maybe even the foster parents have a lawyer. Who knows in situations. But the GAL is the lawyer that is solely for the child.
Yes.
In their best interest.
Correct.
Okay. But in some communities, the GAL is like a CASA.
Yes.
And they're doing more of the visits and all of the things. Okay. So you can just check in your area and see what your program entails. But I'm pretty sure most of the programs do have CASAs.
Yeah.
Yeah, throughout. And there's a little interactive map online so you can click on your state and your area and see where the closest program is to you.
Yes.
Yep. I love it.
All right.
This is such an important program, you guys. And so if you feel called to do so, inquire. The link's down there. You can fill out your application. Kristin will get your application if you're from our area. And are there any reasons why someone could not volunteer? Obviously, you've got to, this is common sense, guys. You got to be able to pass a background check.
Yes. And you can't currently be a foster parent.
Yeah, you can't do both.
Yeah.
You can't do both.
Right.
You're either going to be a CASA advocate or the foster parent.
Right.
Okay. Other than that, though, you're going to get fingerprinted. You're going to get, obviously, we're not letting people up or under our kids.
Right. You have to pass all the background checks.
Yeah, you can't be, registered on any lists or anything, guys. Other than that, no, you are you are qualified. If you're listening, I have a feeling you are qualified. So you can do this.
Yeah.
And you can even just send me like a message, like through the website or, all my information's there. If you have any other questions that you want to hear from an actual worker out there, you want to hear, if you have a question, just send them our way, or Kristin, or we've got Michelle's our advocate, or any of them. You can send them an email or you can call if you have any questions because you're just on the fence about this whole thing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, yes. And then you train in little groups, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
About 5 people per group.
About 5 people per group or whatever, whoever signed up will do it. Yeah. And then off you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
you should do it.
You should do it. No. You should do it. And you should also vote for the right people this season, everybody. So research that too, right? Find out what their stance is on some of these programs. Find out if they're supportive of these programs and of the funding DCFS and that sends our way. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And keep them in mind this Christmas season too for donations, because like I said, they're doing all kinds of great things. Gift cards, gas cards, right?
All the cards.
All the cards. We'll take all the cards. And that makes it easier for you anyway, because you know, it's hard to go fill up your trunk with a bunch of diapers and things you don't know what someone needs. No, just rock out a gift card and bring it over, because we will make sure that it gets
into the right
spent
hands.
into the right hands, because your funding is being spent properly. This is one of those organizations where the kids are absolutely benefiting from every single dollar you're spending, whether it's to hire the forensic interviewer so that a child doesn't have to tell their story of abuse 5 times. They can tell it once in a comfortable environment, whether it's supporting that program. There's no excess waste happening in these programs is what I'm saying. Because there are some nonprofits where you're like, why is the CEO buying a jet? Okay. This is not
I'm not buying a jet.
There's no jets rolling up in these programs, you guys.
Not even close.
Okay.
Right.
Kristin is working hard just to keep the budget where it's at, let alone expand it like it needs.
Right. Although, can I tell you some exciting news?
Yeah.
Forgot about this. So I'm working right now with Illinois CASA, our state chapter, to expand the CASA program into Iroquois County.
There we go.
So that's going to be happening by the end of this year.
See? It's
so if you live in Iroquois County and you want to volunteer, we'll probably be having our first volunteer training at the end of this year.
Yeah.
We need you for sure.
Because for those guys not in our area, so it's a county next to ours that has a high need. It's kind of a rural county.
It is. But
there's a huge high need for it. So we're extending the borders out that way. So that's really good news. They're over there working hard. They're every single dime that you send their way will help the kids. And I wouldn't say that unless I really thought that, guys, because I don't push you guys to spend your money just anywhere. So this program is a really good one, and they're going to spend your money wisely. And if you don't have the money, that's okay. Come on over and volunteer. You can still change a child's life. We're going to do this one kid at a time.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. I kind of want to take on 10 more kids now, but I no, I love, here's my little personal testimony. I love the kids I have right now. They're amazing. And it doesn't matter what age they are. It's great. It is. So you will find the age that's appropriate for you, because I originally always thought I would like just older kids that I could have like conversations with. But then when I have had like smaller babies and stuff, no, I find it even more important all of a sudden, because they have literally no voice.
Yeah.
None. And so it's up to me to make sure they're getting what they need. And that's a big responsibility. And believe me, I love conversations. And I'm still having plenty even when the kids are babies, because we got the mom, we got the foster parents, we've got siblings sometimes, we've got their teachers. I've called daycares before to check in on them, right? If I hear that there might be a problem going on at daycare, I'm calling daycare. What's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on with my kid? Yeah. Let's figure this out, because there's some stuff going on out there. Yeah.
There is.
So be the person that either you wish you would have had when you were a kid, if you have any kind of, child trauma, or just be that person for that child. These kids are so vulnerable, and it sounds cliche, but like they kind of are our future. We're all getting old, and it's going to be these kids that are going to be in charge of everything. So we got to help them. We just have to help them do the best they can be.
Absolutely.
And as a CASA, that's like my main thing, is I just want these kids to have the best opportunity to succeed in life that they can.
Yeah. And there's a lot going on in the world, right?
Oh,
so let's help them. Let's help them the best we can.
We got to help the kids. And so we've gone over all of the things you guys can do. You can volunteer as a CASA. You can donate. You can talk to your legislators. You can report abuse if you think you've seen it. So many things we can do. Other than the donation, they don't cost money. They just take a little bit of your time, and we can do this. Right, Kristin?
Yes. We've got it.
We've got this. We've got these kids. We need to let them know we've got them. And that's what a CASA does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for letting us know all the things. I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, it's my pleasure.
Guys, I'm talking too much. Kristin knows way more than I do, but I'm talking too much because I am passionate about it.
And because you are a volunteer.
And so
you know.
And so I've seen the things and I've seen the kids, and it has been healing for me, and it has been amazing. And so I think this might be, if you're listening, this is probably for you. You were meant to listen to this episode and you were meant to volunteer. So the link's right down there, guys. Just click on it and get started. Get started. You probably have trainings coming up soon. There's always trainings being scheduled. So let's get it done. You can get trained up and ready before the holidays hit here. Help a kid in the holidays. Yep. I love it.
I love it. Let's
I love
do
it all. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Okay, guys, thank you so much. This means a lot to me. And so click away. Let's get volunteering. Let's do it. Thanks, guys. Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now, I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.